Well, hello there, goblins and ghouls. Hey, welcome to a cartoon deep dive. And this is Critical Weight Theory. We're going to break down an iconic animated episode that did way more than just entertain people. I'm Wade, your host, and today we're talking about the episode that started it all for Adventure Time, Slumber Party Panic. It premiered on April 5th, 2010, and from the jump, it told people this show wasn't messing around. You've got candy zombies, royal promises, diarrhea potions, existential dilemmas, all crammed into 11 minutes of mayhem. So let's get into a little bit about what this episode contains. It's basically a quick little recap of what makes this episode great. To start with, the setup is that Princess Bubblegum and Finn are messing around with some mad science, trying to revive dead candy people in the Candy Kingdom. Spoiler, it backfires. Boom, you've got candy zombies, and they're, doing what you would expect candy zombies to do. They're going around trying to bite, anything in sight. To keep the public from freaking out, Bubblegum makes Finn swear a royal promise. He's not allowed to tell anyone what's going on. And that's actually a pretty significant theme in this episode, too, in addition to the pretty neat premise of candy zombies. And because of that royal promise, Jace got to fight off a zombie uprising without spilling the truth about what's going on. So he can't really alert people too much to the danger that's, gathering right outside the gates of the party. So that's your plot, basically. But the episode's real brilliance is in how it feels, or why it slaps, as the kids might say. First, you've got the tone. It's chaotic in the best way. The episode doesn't ease you in, it throws you into a candy colored apocalypse that expects you to keep up. And this was really a crazy introduction to the series. It's not like they were holding your hand. They just threw you into the chaos and really expected you to make sense of this universe. There's no time to explain why there's a science lab in a sugar kingdom. There's just Princess Bubblegum, Finn, and chaos for chaos' sake. Now, to be honest, this episode does not really have that much of Jake the dog in it. He's there, but really he's kind of playing a minor role in the story. And there's some great aspects to that too, because you just get a hint of what Jake the dog is all about. You're introduced to the character, but you're really just able to get curious about what the relationship is between Jake and Finn, and of course all these other characters, because not everything can be adequately explained, especially if it's just within the first 11 minutes of a TV series. So it's like, what Max says from It's Always Sunny, science is a liar sometimes, and that's why we just trust they are mixing up a magical potion with diarrhea in it. Yeah, you heard that right. They do diarrhea reference in the ingredients of the magic potion that Bubblegum whips up. So it's a it's a weird show right from the start. I think that was intentionally done that way to test the waters of whether the audience would stick with this show. And sure enough, it was wild and crazy enough that some people were instantly drawn into it. Now, I have to admit, I didn't follow this show right from the very start. I was a little bit of a late bloomer when it came to the show. But I had years of weird content exposure that kind of made me more readily accepting of a story like this one. I watched The Adventures of Pete and Pete in the 90s and The Adventures of, or whatever Ren and Stimpy's show was called. I think it was just the Ren and Stimpy show. And, there was Rugrats and all those weird kind of shows that were on Nickelodeon. And other things too, like straight up horror movies, of course, like A Nightmare on Elm Street 3, which is a pretty crazy movie. So I was actually pretty well prepared for whatever this series was going to throw my way. And this show is still weird, though. It still has weird moments that are right up there on a weird list of things to be, you know, adding into a show. Like, don't underestimate Adventure Time for its weirdness. And in fact, I mentioned horror movies earlier. There actually are some genuinely freaky moments in this show too. This episode doesn't really have that many of those. But Adventure Time at times it does get a little bit creepy and odd, you know. So that's another reason to check this show out if you're a horror fan. There are some of those odd moments, like I'm not going to rattle them off as a list in this episode of my podcast, but you're just going to have to trust me on that if you haven't watched the show. Stick with it, and you'll be able to create your own list of odd moments. But anyway, that's Adventure Time in a nutshell. It's a surreal mix of silliness and sincerity and definitely some, I guess, surreal moments, you know, and funny too. It's a very funny show. The quirky humor definitely could hook somebody even within just one episode. It's one of those things. It's a show where the joke might be a fart sound, but the theme is about honesty versus duty. I don't mean duty in that sense. I mean like DUTY. So Finn's dilemma in this episode is pretty interesting. If you talk about Finn, he's actually kind of a complicated character. Here he's caught between telling the truth to save people and keeping a promise he made to someone that he trusts. So it's a huge deal for him because it's what's also a huge deal for the audience because it's our first taste of something Adventure Time does really well, which is hiding emotional depth under absurd plots. And the royal promise seems goofy at first, and it's going to come back to later on in the series, which is also interesting. But later in the series, you've got other promises and oaths and the weight of responsibility. They all become major themes throughout the series, especially for people like Finn and Bubblegum. But the introductions and first impressions, it's a real nice mixed bag because you've got a lot of almost kind of complex emotions running through the episode, but it's at the same time actually pretty light. It's definitely not that heavy of an episode. It's pretty cool how they do that. They balance all of those different complex and sometimes contrasting moods, but they make it all work. It's our first real look at the core trio of Finn, Jake, and Princess Bubblegum. Jake just plays a chill here, like I said. Finn is pure hearted chaos. Bubblegum is part ruler and part mad scientist. And you already feel the dynamic tension. It's that triangle that'll drive so much of the story later on. So even from episode one, you sense that Bubblegum's all about control and logic, while Finn's driven by gut instinct and his feelings. And that clash, it's relatively subtle in this episode, but it expands and blows up in later seasons. So this episode really matters because, of course, Slumber Party Panic is, well, I mean, for one thing, it's the start of the show, but it's also not just the start of a show. It sets the tone for a world that doesn't follow traditional cartoon rules. You get the sense that characters might be able to die. There are stakes, there's emotion, but there's also candy people, butt jokes, and science experiments gone horribly wrong. And if you pay attention, this episode plants seeds for much later. The seeds of secrets, consequences, people coming back from the dead, and that's real horror there under the sugar. It's like it's like that Bad Arm Meinhof phenomenon. Once you notice it, you start seeing it everywhere. Themes and ideas first hinted at here echo throughout the entire series. So, another thing that's great about this episode, of course, if you watch if you watch this episode and follow the series onward, is that there's that great mellow Adventure Time theme that opens the show and closes the show. So, this episode has all of that too, like the great music that starts and ends the show, and sometimes that is a part of what gets somebody hooked to a TV show. Like if you think about the theme to Cheers, for example, I I think I've rarely ever watched any episodes of Cheers. I remember finding some of it funny, but really one of the things that always sticks with me is the theme to Cheers. It's just a catchy and nostalgic theme, and it really it's about as good of a TV theme as you could find. And of course, you've got other classic TV show themes too, like I mentioned the Adventures of Pete and Pete earlier. But you've got the Kids in the Hall theme, which is great, and this show definitely it doesn't disappoint as far as having memorable musical themes. So it's Slumber Party Panic is a wild, messy, and brilliant kickoff to what might be the longest and weirdest coming of age story ever told in animated form. So, if you want me to more thoroughly spotlight a specific moment, go ahead and let me know. And if you haven't rewatched this one in a while, go ahead and fire it up. You'll see a lot more than just candy zombies. Although, the candy zombies are reason enough to watch it anyway. So, until next time, come along with me. This is Wade signing off from Critical Wade Theory in this cartoon deep dive with without giving too much away, hopefully. So go ahead and check this show out.